Hello, I'm Robin. Welcome to Bookspin. Drunkboat was first published in October 1963 in Amazing Stories magazine. It's quite interesting how this came about. Apparently, the magazine editor had a cover illustration ready to go, but it wasn't tied to any particular story. And so she approached Cordwainer Smith's agent to see if he could quickly provide a story that would match this image. Now, Smith had an older story that he'd written some years earlier, and this was called The Colonel Who Came Back from the Nothing at All. And he'd never been able to get this story published. So what he did was he used this story as the basis for a new expanded story, which got published as Drunkboat in Amazing Stories to go with this cover. Now, I've reviewed the original story here previously, and while these two stories do share several things in common, they are two distinct tales, and Drunkboat has a more complicated plot and a very different story resolution. The story concerns a man called Arthur Rimbaud from Earth 4 and his quest to find his beloved Elizabeth, who has been hospitalized on Earth many light years away. And while he is the subject of the story, he's actually quite a passive protagonist in a way, because he spends most of the story in a hospital bed himself. And his whole mission is, in fact, all part of an elaborate experiment set up by the powerful Lord Credelta, who selects Rimbaud as a test subject for a radical new method of space travel. And this involves taking an unprecedented voyage through Space 3, right? Space 3 is a kind of mysterious dimension. It's a form of FTL travel that is very mysterious. It's dangerous, it's bizarre, and the experimental technology which Rimbaud uses to travel to Earth is a specially designed spaceship, and it's described as a rocket of the most ancient style. That is the phrase used in the story, which is an image that conveniently matches the magazine cover, the rocket on the cover. So Rimbaud survives the experience. He lands on Earth, broken, mad, and incoherent, but alive. And he gets discovered in this strange state, lying naked in the grass of Earth. And so he gets sent to hospital. That is the basic setup. This is followed by a strange hospital drama in which the doctors and the robot staff are increasingly baffled by this new patient of theirs. Things become weirder and more unnerving, and strange things start happening in the hospital. Rimbaud's body starts producing dangerous and unpredictable effects on the hospital environment around him. And he starts interfering with hospital machinery, even while he doesn't actually know what's happening. And then things become even more confusing and chaotic when the military come onto the scene, and the things all kick off. We've got an action-packed sequence which is known within the story as the 2 Minutes War. And I must admit, at this point in the story, I was pretty confused. I didn't really know what was going on with this whole military sci-fi section. Eventually, though, things do get explained. And then in the final act of the story, we get treated to a courtroom drama in which the Lord Credelta, who is the architect of all of this madness, gets put on trial. everything gets explained. And I think it's this courtroom drama section that I found most enjoyable to read. The first two parts of the story, the hospital drama and the military section, they contain lots of interesting ideas, but the plot does get a bit tangled and confusing. And like I said, it's not entirely clear what's going on. But the trial kind of wraps things up and neatly explains things. So, not a bad story overall, but I do think it's fair to say that I prefer the original short story, The Colonel Came Back from the Nothing at All, which is quite a bit shorter than Drunkboat, but I do think it's better written. The plot is not as complex as Drunkboat. The stakes are a bit lower, and there's no evil antagonist involved. But ultimately, the original story, I think, offers more of a compelling mystery, and the characters are a bit more memorable, and it just feels like a better crafted story. So that's my opinion. But if you've read these two stories, let me know your thoughts. Which one did you prefer? Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon for some more sci-fi content.